Okay, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and start. So, guys, introduce yourself.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Anthony, and I'm from LA.
I'm Tino, and I'm from New York. Oh, this is kind of early-ish for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's pretty bright here right now.
Okay, so both the links to their channels, I have them in the description. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first question I have, um, I really, whoever wants to answer first. What are your feelings about Trump ending the Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals Act? And do you think that maybe it's needed to actually pass immigration reform? So whoever wants to go first.
You can go ahead and start, Anthony.
All right, so I think Trump's desire to end DACA is very it's not a wise decision because because these kids have arrived here like not under their own choice but under their parents' choice. So so I wouldn't want to say they were dragged here, but like since they were kids and they were under supervision of their parents, they were just pretty much brought into it without a say. However, and also since they received an education here in the United States, um, and lived their like pretty much most of their lives in the United States, they're pretty much bred as Americans, and it would be terrible for them to be sent back to a homeland where they have absolutely no familiarity of. And And well, I'm not that pessimistic about the whole DACA thing possibly being ended, but I do see it as a segue of possibly passing immigration reform. Um, as of now, because of DACA and like the hasty way of it being established, there's no there's no clear path of citizenship for DACA recipients and for these parents as well. So um, so I would want like them to receive green cards, because they're pretty much Americans, so it wouldn't make sense for them to be sent back home. This is the only home that they know of.
Yeah, I think when it comes to liberals and libertarians, I think this is a kind of similar viewpoint in the issue. Maybe variances and specific um, thoughts on immigration reform, but the way that I see it, and the way that a huge circle of my friends see it, um, is that this is just a power play by Trump at this point because he's not getting the wall that he wants. He's not able to spend the $56 billion it's going to take to build the wall. So he's doing he's doing the removal of DACA as a way for a power play. Like, hey, you're not going to give me my wall, then I'm going to take this away from you guys and show you that I mean business. The problem with this is that it does. A lot of people don't understand that the biggest chunk of people that are here illegally come here via work visas. So they come here on planes, trains, and automobiles. They don't come here on rafts and sneaking across the borders. They come here, they work, and then their visa expires. So this actually does hurt that segment of people because they come here, they find love, they get married, they have kids, and those kids are now not protected. And um, because those children are no longer protected, and I know you were talking about the DAPA as well earlier before we started the conversation, but we need to protect those children. And as you said perfectly, these children get an education here. They're learning in our school system. So now we're giving them our education and then shipping them back home, whether it's to Mexico or Syria with the refugees, whatever country that brings people here. And you mentioned that this might be a step into immigration reform. The way that this administration has it, this is going to be bad immigration reform, because right now we have a Republican-controlled Congress, a Republican-controlled Senate, and a Republican in the White House, which means that if they start the immigration reform process, it is going to be nothing but bad. If they continue to go this route where they make immigrants the enemy, then we are going to lose a huge part of what makes America America. I mean, most of the people that came over here are descendants from immigrants, and everyone's saying, "Oh, well, it's the economy now. We can't take them in." Well, that's what we were founded on. We were founded on a collection of groups of people formed together, and yeah, we overthrew England, but we weren't all English, straight up English colonies. There were Dutch colonies, there were French colonies, there were all sorts of colonies combined, and all these people coming over, even until the 1900s. We're not the only country that has immigration problems. England has immigration problems, but we set ourselves up to be that beacon of light for people, and to send children away. Like, I know that you don't want to separate the parents from the children, and that it's kind of a set deal, but the minute that you attack children in any way, shape, or form, I think that immediately makes you a monster, and it just further shows the incompetence and overall the evilness of a Trump administration.
Okay, so real quick, have you guys ever watched a movie called Which Way Home?
I have not.
No, I haven't either.
So it's a documentary. Basically, it's kids, teenagers that have made the dangerous journey by train. Like, they ride on top of the trains to from like Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, all the way up to the United States border. Here, and I'm gonna put a link in the group chat, in the live chat. So
Yeah, I've actually heard about like the kids coming from Central America, from Central America to pretty much Texas, and Arizona. I heard they were actually like being detained, and they're trying to like get asylum. They're trying to get asylum.
yeah.
Yeah, the children are not at fault, and that's when you have a president that demonizes immigrants and Mexicans and promotes the xenophobia that America has had for a long time. It does nothing but hurt our relations with other countries. It does nothing but make us look like bullies, and it makes us look it makes us look like we lack any form of compassion. These are children. They're not. They didn't ask to be born.
So I should probably clarify real quick. Which, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, like with both you guys are saying. But these kids, they're coming without their parents. So it's just kids traveling by themselves.
So you're talking about the ones from Central America specifically right now.
Yes, Central and Mexico.
Okay.
So they're like 13, 14. I think one was 9. But yeah, I do agree. And I'm just curious. I mean, I know Anthony, you said you were from LA. Is like immigration like a large issue there? Because actually where I am, surprisingly, is a pretty big issue.
I'm from the greater Los Angeles area. I just say LA. It's just like simplify things. I live in an enclave where it's actually mostly immigrant, and most people, most of the kids, like especially like millennials, are like first generation Americans, including me. And yes, it is a pretty big issue there because most people in my area, including the neighborhoods around me, the parents came from China, Mexico, El Salvador, Vietnam, Indonesia. I mean, it's just pretty much like the prime issue here, and like you know how like different areas of the United States have different problems. Well, immigration is a pretty big issue too, and considering that I live pretty much right next to a neighborhood where it's 70% Latino. People are generally scared about the Trump administration, and many people are trying to. Many people like who were conservative because it was a conservative enclave are leaning more libertarian and more liberal because of that. Because of the anti-immigration, like because of the anti-immigration sentiment that's been coming from the Republican Party in California since the 90s.
Wait, would you say this? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I live in northern New York. I live up near, excuse me, the Adirondack Mountains. I live 15 minutes away from the Canadian border. We have border patrol, and unfortunately, within 100 miles of border lines, the border patrol has the authority to set up stops and search vehicles and do all that kind of stuff because immigrants are coming in through Canada. That's a big way for them to come in. Just in general, like I know we're supposed to be specifically talking about DACA, but like in general, I think our immigration policies are way too harsh, and people have these huge common misconceptions. And I probably shouldn't be saying this, but to make some extra cash, I have worked on farms for a few days, dairy farms and stuff. New York, we supply a lot of milk to a lot of part of the country. And I've worked with undocumented workers, and everyone says, well, they're just stealing money from American workers. Anthony, and you can confirm this for me. Do you think a lot of millennials are going to hop on a farm for $7.50 an hour to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning? No, they're not.
Especially ones born here. Especially ones born here with like higher living standards, like we're accustomed to it.
I would say it depends on the area, because in my area, yes, a lot would. Because I live in a pretty rural area.
Well, so I live 20 minutes away from 4 different colleges. And if you think those college kids are going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go milk a cow and lug pails of milk and dump them into a machine at 3 o'clock in the morning, you are definitely very mistaken. Maybe in your area, yes, but up here they don't. And these undocumented workers, believe it or not, a lot of them are trying to save up. Like they have very low living expenses, and they say, oh, well, they're sending their money back to their families. Well, their families are sustaining themselves back home. But what they are trying to do is they are trying to send money back home to pay the $10,000 in legal fees and to get the paperwork going so their family can come to America legally. They are trying. Now, I'm not saying all are doing this, but you have to think about this overall, not just the DACA, but as an overall immigration policy. If we only bring in 1 million immigrants a year, but yet we have the number floats between 20 and 30 million undocumented workers in the United States. If we make these people American citizens, they then have to be paid minimum wage because they are then going to be documented, and they then will have to start paying into taxes. They already have the jobs. If we give them amnesty, if we make them legal immigrants, we now have 20 to 30 million people putting money into taxes. Yes, the farmers typically get undocumented workers because they work for $5 an hour or cheaper, but the federal minimum wage is like $7.50 right now. $2.50 an hour raise, it might hurt them a little bit, but ultimately that will be more money going in the economy, more people being able to pay for the $5 gallons of milk that we have right now. I think that the DACA is just one part. The removal of DACA is just one part of a bigger problem. And as you said, we do need to get immigration reform policy. We do need to get a discussion going on that in the Congress, in the Senate. And the best way for that to happen is for people like you and me to raise awareness to other people and get them to talk to their local congressmen and their senators and try to push for the proper reform and not reform that Trump has in mind.
Okay. Real quick, if we get off topic, like that's okay because, like that's like the pretty much the point. And like it makes sense. So under Obama in January, I believe of this year, he ended the policy that actually my family immigrated through this policy, wet foot, dry foot, which is the coming from Cuba to America and then applying for citizenship in America. Do you guys think that was the right decision, or do you do you guys think it's the right decision? Do you guys think it's the wrong decision, or do you think we should like have this for like countries that need it the most? Like
I believe that Obama should not have ended the wet foot, dry foot policy because it was basically one of the few ways where this policy pretty much benefited the Cubans the most, like the Cuban refugees that are the boat migrants, and the way they see it is that it's a power play by Democrats, where because Cubans tend to be conservative, and Cubans they tend to lean conservative and they vote Republican, and they just see it as another power play, as a power play by the Democrats. Any program that makes some form of immigration easier should not be overturned. At all. And like, if you overturn like any program that makes it easier, you're just going to have another problem on your hands. And usually, it's a problem with like many unintended consequences.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with too much there. I can't quote the exact same, but I do a lot of political discussions, political groups, and a phrase that I saw that sticks with me to this day, this was from years ago, was when you take away positive immigration policies, you create more illegal immigrants. Because you take away the doorway, and that's not what we should be doing. And I said it earlier, we need to be accepting more people. And I was a Democrat for a long time, ever since I was younger, and I voted for Obama twice. And this is one of the things that makes me really feel like I regret voting for him, because of some of the stuff that he does, and this was one of them. I do not think that you should be hurting people that are already suffering, that are already trying to escape, a bad situation. It's, just like with Central America and Syrian refugees, closing the door on people that need our help, that need a better life, and they look to America for that. Like, we should feel honored that countries look to America as this beacon of hope, as this safe haven, and we just completely destroy them. We destroy their dreams, we destroy their aspirations, and we tell them, no, we don't want you here. And I don't think that's right. And as for power play, I don't know if it was so much as a power play against conservatives as it was something. And this goes into a wider spectrum, so I won't really get into it, but I will just say this. The left has been moving right. Like, the Democrats take 2 steps to the right to try to meet with the Republicans in some middle ground, and the Republicans take 3 steps backwards. Democrats take another 2 steps right, Republicans take another 3 steps further right. Like, it just seems like it gets crazier and crazier until the point where you no longer have actual Democrats, you have Republican lights running Congress. And I think it was more to appeal to Republican voters, especially since it was done this past January, correct?
Yeah, it was done in January 2017.
Yeah. They're trying to soften the base. They just lost the presidential election. They lost the House and the Senate big time. They lost tons of seats. they need to appeal to Republican voters, and that because Democrats are not being more liberal, they're being more conservative. So now they are trying to do anything they can to appeal to their more conservative, the more conservative voters, or maybe not entirely conservative, but people more towards the middle ground. They're trying to get those people. So that I won't get too much more into it because that's going way off topic. But that's where I see that as. I don't see it so much as a power play.
May I say something about that?
Go for it.
Okay, so like I didn't really say that was a power play like straight. I just said like I just like the Cuban Sea as a power play. And also like from like what I've been seeing on Twitter about like President Obama's like decision to end wet foot dry foot, I've seen more outrage coming from the Republicans than more from conservatives than liberals. Partly because of the conflict. Maybe it's because it's a conflict of interest because the Cubans tend to vote conservative. However, like I wouldn't, and also I wouldn't really say like Democrats are leaning more towards right. I mostly see it as I don't see them moving more right. I see both sides becoming more polarized over time, especially since the status quo, the establishment is not really getting much stuff done. And like people are becoming more polarized because people are just getting desperate at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. Most of the outrage I've seen was definitely from the right, but I think it was mostly because, and this may just be me, because I see it more from my community, like within my family, who they were really mad about this whole situation because that's how the majority of them got here, was through this policy. Yeah, and the polarization, I would agree, but I have one question. Tino, would you say that, could you think of a single Republican at all that you could vote for if you had to choose one?
Oh, oh God, that's a tough one. I mean, there's not. I mean, I don't know. It's tough. It's honestly during the election, during the 2016 primaries. I did see myself liking one of their candidates, and I can't really say a lot for a lot of congressmen and stuff like that because I vastly disagree. With a lot of their policies, a lot of their thought processes. But pure Republican, and I'm sorry, I don't consider Rand Paul a Republican. He's a Libertarian, just like Bernie Sanders is an independent. He's not a Democrat. I honestly, to be fair, I think a Rand Paul, Bernie Sanders presidential election, the debates between them would have been phenomenal. And I think that would have been what we needed in this country. But if I were to have picked one of those candidates, it probably would have been Kasich. Kasich seemed like he had a better head on his shoulder, like John Kasich from Ohio, governor of Ohio. I don't know. He seemed more level-headed out of everybody. He seemed not to get caught up in, not get as caught up in all of the ridiculousness that had happened. Like he constantly pointed out, like I know Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz were going, oh, this is Trump, he's being ridiculous, but they bought into it. They went back and forth with Trump, and you can't bring yourself down just to someone like Trump's level. And Kasich kept himself above that. Kasich is even actually considering running a unity ticket in the 2020 election. He wants to run with a Democrat. I haven't seen too much more on it than what I initially saw, but he seems like he has an idea of what needs to be done. And while I might not agree with every single one of his views, if like he wouldn't be my first choice. I don't like the two-party system. But if it came down to it and I was asked, like, all right, you're going to vote in the Republican primary of 2016, I would have cast my ballot for Kasich.
Okay. So I guess let's just go ahead and say, like, to this, Anthony, did you vote in the Libertarian primary if there was one in California?
I did not vote in the primaries because I was not eligible to vote yet, considering I was only 17 at the time. However, by the time the election came along, in November, I knew Gary Johnson would not win. I knew, like, considering how left-leaning California is, I knew he would not win at all. So, but I didn't want to vote for Clinton, and nor did I want to vote for Trump. And since there's none of the above choice for the ballots, well, as of now, I just casted my vote for Gary Johnson.
Okay, and then after the election, we had the issue with Collexit. Like, what were your thoughts on that when you first heard about it?
Can I ask something really quick? Because it feels like we're going to be moving a little bit in a different direction. So you did vote for Gary Johnson?
Yes, I did.
Even though you felt that he had absolutely no chance of winning.
Yes, I did.
All right. So I'm just going to say, first of all, I applaud you, because there's a lot of hate towards third-party politics right now. And I'm very glad to hear that you didn't vote for Clinton. I'm very glad to hear that you didn't vote for Trump, and that you followed your instinct with what you wanted. And I think that we need to promote more third-party politics and try to get those smaller parties out there, because with that 5% national vote, popular vote, they get in there. They get on the ballots in all states, like Gary Johnson and everything. But the main thing that I wanted to ask you was, were you upset with your party's choice of candidate?
Yes, I was. I was a Austin Pearson supporter, like, because I believe that he was well principled. He did not, relative to the other candidates in the Libertarian Party, I feel like he sold out a lot less. I've heard people comparing him to be the Bernie Sanders of the Libertarian Party, the anti-establishment of the anti-establishment. Definitely see that, because most of his campaigns were crowdfunded. Similarly, and he didn't rely on super PACs and as much as the other candidates did.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to ask that.
Well, Tony, now I'm curious. Did you vote third party as well? Or
yeah, I know you were asking me. Yeah, I was a very big Bernie Sanders supporter. I know we're going to talk about Hillary in a bit, so you'll get to hear my full views on that. I didn't write Bernie Sanders, and I voted for Jill Stein because she more closely represented what I wanted. As I said, I was a Democrat since I was young, ever since the election between Bill Clinton and was it Bob Dole? I think it was Bob Dole.
96?
Yeah. I was 9 years old at that time, and I heard all these wonderful stories about Bill Clinton. And I was like, oh, the Democrats are the party for the working class and the little man. And I was like, I like that. I like that. And it's very interesting because I have a very close friend of mine that's Libertarian. And this year she was so happy to hear that I was no longer a Democrat. And I told her, I said, a Clinton made me a Democrat, and another Clinton took me away from that. So I ended up voting for Jill Stein because she believes in fair wages. She believes that we need diplomacy over war. We're a country that's always in war. And that we need to look out for each other, and that's a big thing for me. And Hillary Clinton was all about being power hungry, and to me, Donald Trump was. I can't honestly say why I thought he was doing it, but I'd never trust him. He's always lying. He's always saying gross things, and that's not the kind of person that I think that should be representing us. And I didn't vote for Gary Johnson because, quite frankly, talking with a lot of libertarians, they didn't like him. And if hardcore libertarians don't agree with the person that is being led that's leading their party on the election ticket, and like I didn't, there were some policies I didn't necessarily agree with. At this point, I can't even tell you what they were because it was just one of those things of he doesn't agree with me on some things. I found a candidate that does, so I'm not really going to bother with this candidate anymore, which is kind of sad to say, but yeah, no, I did vote third party, and I get told all the time that my party was a wasted vote. I actually lost connection to my uncle, who basically disowned me because Hillary didn't win, and he thoroughly believes that it's Jill Stein's fault, which I find it hilarious. Yes, in a few states, she did get enough votes that if they would have gone to Hillary, it would have helped her win. But at the same time, those votes would have either not gone to Hillary, as in being not cast, or if they would have gone to Hillary, not enough would have gone to her to help her win from Jill Stein.
Okay, and then I actually have two questions for Anthony. One, Austin Peterson's running for the Senate, right?
Yes, I've definitely heard of it.
Yes, in Missouri as a Republican. So, like, what were your thoughts on that when you found out?
I was actually very thrilled to hear that he's giving running for office another try after after it being unsuccessful in the Libertarian primaries. And I'm in his Facebook group. It's called the Austin Peterson Freedom Ninja. And we all said it was an overwhelming consensus that he run as a Republican. We understand that the way the two-party system works, him running as a Libertarian is not going to work out at all. We persuaded him to run as a Republican to definitely undercut the system and to join like other politicians like Justin Amash, Rand Paul, into trying to undermine the Trump administration in some way.
Okay, and then the second thing, well, real quick before I get to the second question, all of like the generic polls that are out that are against Senator Claire McCaskill, who's the current senator, the Democrat from Missouri, shows pretty much everything like that she's losing, and that generic Republican on average beats her by 16. And then also, what were your thoughts when like Gary Johnson made like all the like a lot of mistakes in interviews, especially like yelling at I can't remember who he was yelling at, but it was in an interview about illegal immigration where the host used the term illegal immigrant instead of undocumented immigrant, and also where for another interview he didn't even know what Aleppo was. He actually thought it was just an acronym. Like, what were your thoughts on that?
I would say that him not being able to maintain his composure well during like these interviews definitely shows like a flaw in character. That is tantamount to how Trump is like being insane during the and can't really hold himself well during debates and interviews. So I see it similar to that. And also him not knowing what Aleppo was. I don't really care about that much because like many politicians nowadays pretend that they know something that they really don't, and they don't really admit it. So I applaud him for not admitting that he knows. However, I remember in another interview where someone asked him like, "What leader what world leader do you like in history and present, past and present?" And he could not answer. Could not answer, and now I actually see that as a more of a flaw than him not knowing what Aleppo was.
Okay. So
Yeah,
now,
can I just real quick?
yeah.
To be fair, before that whole Aleppo debacle, I'd say 99% of the country didn't know what Aleppo was. So him not knowing what Aleppo was, I don't fault him for that at all. And the best leader, past and present, that's kind of hard. It's like if I asked you right now, like, what's your all-time #1 movie? You know, you have to sit there and think about it. You have to, and even then, you might second guess your decision. It's hard. So, like, yeah, you could have said something and been like, oh, this for this reason, and in the past, and this current leader for this reason. But it's hard when you're running and you're in the public eye like that. It's very hard to not say something that's going to offend somebody. So, I honestly think him going, well, I can't really think of anything right now, or I can't give you one. I don't think that's a flaw. I actually thought that was a strong move for him, because he could have said some stuff that might have deterred voters either way.
Well, I know he did deter some voters. Like I've known some I do know libertarians a lot that were strongly supporting him, but after, I would say it was mostly after that comment, like he couldn't name a world leader, and then when he said like a past Mexican president and he couldn't think of his name, I believe it was and I know I'm being a hypocrite because I don't remember his name either. I think it was Vincent Fox, if I'm not mistaken. I know that really threw off a lot of people who were originally supporting him. So like, but okay, so moving on to the next topic. Okay, so we found out Anthony's opinions of Gary Johnson. What were your, Tina, what was your opinions of Hillary Clinton?
To put it bluntly, if people are calling Trump Hitler, Hillary is the devil. Like I said, I was a Democrat up until through till about early 2016. Clinton is a politician through and through, and she even said at one point, "Oh, I'm not a politician like my husband or Barack Obama." That just proves that she's a liar. I have nothing good to say about Hillary Clinton at all. So, she moved to New York the perfect amount of months before becoming a New York senator, and she became one of my senators. And she literally did nothing for this state. And then when New York finally passed its $15 an hour minimum wage, she shows up like she did something. She said that she has been on record saying that $15 an hour is unachievable. It's an impossible dream right now, that we should be happy with maybe 12 or 10. And then she shows up to stand right beside Andrew Cuomo, acting like she's been for the $15 an hour fight the entire time. No, Bernie Sanders was. That's just another thing that she tried stealing from him. And satirical comedy is the best way to shine light on problems and taboo subjects. Saturday Night Live did a beautiful sketch, and I can't remember the actress's name. Something McKinney, I think it is, playing Hillary Clinton during the whole election cycle, and they did a skit where Hillary Clinton, over the course of her ad, turned into Bernie Sanders, because people wanted Bernie Sanders. People wanted that change. And Bernie had to basically keep pushing her promises, and I say promises because she would never follow through on them, to the left. Keep her going to the left, to the left. And she had to basically start adopting some of his policies. But once she won, won in quotations, the Democratic primary, she totally just went right back towards the right. She went right back towards the right where she was. She doesn't care about the American people. She just cared about being in power. She cared about being the first female president. And I do think we should have a female president at some point, but I think it should be somebody that deserves to be the first female president. And it was very bittersweet on the election night, rooting both for and against Trump and Hillary, because either way, it was going to be a bad win. And the lesser of two evils is still an evil. Hillary Clinton, she is a career politician, despite what she claims. And with her book, What Happened, we all know what happened. Hillary Clinton happened. She puts blame on Bernie Bros, on Bernie, well, quote unquote Bernie Bros. There's no such thing, but that's what she wants to. That was her PR campaign. Bernie Sanders, Jill Stein, celebrities that endorsed Bernie Sanders or Jill Stein, Donald Trump being having a solid base with racists and xenophobes and homophobes, saying that she wasn't going to win that quote unquote basket of deplorables anyway. She blames Barack Obama for her losing. She blames literally everybody but herself. Had she actually genuinely accepted some of Bernie Sanders' policies and appealed to the Bernie Sanders base, independents are the largest voting bloc. There are millions of independents that are registered as Democrats strictly for the purpose of voting in Democratic primaries. You have to go to those independents. And saying straight out, she said this, I can't remember if it was to Rachel Maddow or someone else from CNN, but she said, we don't need them. Well, clearly she did. And she has no problem alienating a huge portion of the Democratic base and the independent base. A lot of people that did originally vote Bernie in the primaries voted for Hillary because they didn't want Trump. And there was this whole thing of vote blue no matter who. And that's something that she pushed because she knew that she was going to, quote unquote, win the Democratic primaries. And she needed the Bernie supporters to have that mindset of, oh, well, if the Hillary supporters are going to vote for Bernie no matter what, then we should vote for Hillary even if she wins. So we should fall in line. We should heel to Hillary, and that didn't work because people's eyes are open now, and they're not going to fall for the same politics that have been happening. And that's very clear. We had a populist candidate win versus a career politician, and that should show the country where we're heading. We need to get these career politicians out of office and put in these populist candidates, and Hillary is not one of them. She is a backstabber. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but every time someone came in the way of Hillary Clinton becoming president, someone magically ended up dead or magically changing their views or, in their public opinions and stuff. So I feel like Hillary Clinton is this deranged mafia boss that was trying to do her best to lie, cheat, steal, and even possibly kill to get into the Oval Office, and it ended up backfiring on her in a huge way. They praised Julian Assange for whenever he revealed anything against the right wing and Republicans, but the minute that he shows the DNC leaks, that they conspired with Hillary, that they gave her debate questions, that they rigged the primary in her favor, she goes, oh, well, WikiLeaks and Julian Assange destroyed my chances of becoming president, so we need to go after them. She literally said, can't we just bomb him? How is that? How is bombing an innocent person any different than the war mentality that we've had since we've been created. We've always been in war, except for like maybe 15, 20 years in our entire nation's history. How is that any different? Is that really going to get Bernie supporters and independent voters to your side? No, it's not, because you want to quiet the truth. You want to be controlling and this fascist type of president. Like, I have nothing good to say about Hillary, and I'm very glad she didn't win. I'm very sad that Trump won, but I'm very glad that she didn't win as well, because she didn't deserve to be the first female president. And I honestly don't think she deserves any of the spotlight that she's getting now post-election. Her book was just to keep her in the spotlight. I don't know if she intends on running again in 2020, but if she is the candidate that the Democrats fall behind, they will lose another presidential election. Okay,
so I should probably preface what I'm going to say is that I used to be like far on the right. I'm not really anymore, but I'm on this one group on Facebook called Latin Conservatives. There's a joke running around there about what you just said about Hillary running, where she actually made the comment saying that she's not going to run, but she always lies, so she's going to run. But real quick, I was going to ask you about that book, especially one comment. The debate comment, I don't know if you've heard it, where she asked Bernie Sanders to name one position where she flipped, and even if he didn't, like, do you think that was a valuable, like, that was even a good question to ask when there's actually documented proof? I would even say probably the week before, if I remember correctly, when all this happened, where she actually switched her position, where she said to one group of voters she was a moderate, but another group she's a progressive that takes no backseat to anyone. Like, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, she admitted that she has public views and private views. So right there is something that I would have been like, well, you said you have public views and you have private views. You have your public views that you tell to all your constituents, but then you have your private views of which you share with all your donors. If I remember correctly, Bernie didn't comment on that. He didn't start picking out positions. That was during one of the debates. I remember watching that. But I don't know. It was more so to limit like any mudslinging. Bernie wanted that campaign and those debates to be done on a purely ethical, moral, and civilized level, as opposed to be a huge juxtaposition to what was going on in the Republican primary. The fact that he didn't do it really upset me, but at the same time, that wouldn't be the Bernie that we fell in love with, that we wanted to vote for. But there, like as you said, there are tons of documented. I mean, even the fight for 15, where she was saying $15 an hour will never be achieved, and then she just pops up in New York and she's like, "Hey, we did it! Like, you didn't do anything. Stay out of my state. You have no right to be here. You did nothing to help us. You did nothing at all." So I'm upset that Bernie didn't pounce on that right away, because as soon as that was said, I was like, hold on, I got a list. Like I was prepared for that one. But Hillary flip-flops so dang much. She's worse than a pancake. And I know Mitt Romney got hit with that too during the 2012 presidential debates, how he flip-flops on a lot of topics, but that's what politicians do. What really upset me though, and this will be the last thing I say, and Anthony, if you want to chime in, please do, because I'd like to hear your opinion on this as well. It changed from flip-flopping, because it used to be, oh, you flip-flop, you flip-flop, you flip-flop. And now she coined the term political evolution. I evolved on the topic. I received more information and I evolved on the topic. Tell me, where does this evolution happen when you stop calling, like tell me what's the evolving point that you stop calling black people super predators and telling them that they need to heal to you? Why was there any evolution needed on that? Why couldn't you just in the beginning go, black people are people too? Maybe we shouldn't be labeling them with stuff. Maybe we shouldn't be incarcerating them. Maybe I should talk to my husband about the whole minimum sentences thing while he was president. As first lady, she said these damning things, and now she's politically evolved on the topic. She's evolved on the minimum wage. She's evolved on healthcare. She's evolved on this. She's evolved on that. It's not evolution when it happens immediately. Evolution is something that takes course over a long period of time. It is still flip-flopping. She has flip-flopped on countless numbers of topics, and the fact that they instituted her PR campaign and instituted this evolution concept is highly disappointing and highly frustrating to me.
Also, I'd also like to say that part of what contributed to Hillary's lack of credibility was I'm sure a lot of people probably don't remember this, but remember after a speech she had a really bad coughing fit, and eventually it led to her needing Secret Service to help her out. Yeah,
you're talking about when she was being rushed into the car and she was all hunched over and coughing and stuff.
Yeah, and apparently that came out to be pneumonia. While when I heard about this, I didn't want to didn't really jump to conclusions right away. I just wanted to see what would happen later on, and because I probably thought okay, she's old, so she's going to have some slight health concerns. That doesn't really bother me. However, she never came out public about it right away. This is basically similar to how Trump doesn't want to release his tax returns because he's just because both sides just hid something, and her hiding her illness, and even though she came out public about it, it does raise more concerns. What if it's not pneumonia? Maybe it's something else. Because we already know, because of her campaign, she's a flip-flopper and she's a bit of a liar too. So I would say that also contributed to her lack of credibility.
I'm honestly surprised 2 weeks after she said it was pneumonia, she didn't come out and say, "Oh no, it was just a common cold. I'm good." She just lies so much. You cannot get a single truth from her unless you go behind the doors and get like the Goldman Sachs transcripts. Why couldn't she release those? If she would have released them, even if they said some damning things, some people might have been a little bit okay, so she can tell the truth. It's not impossible for her, but she refused to, and that definitely hurt her too. She cannot be trusted, and at least with Trump, he's blunt. And you know what he's thinking, you know what he's doing because he's saying it, he's tweeting about it every 5 minutes. So at least then you know what's going on. But with Hillary, you can't, and that's not something you want in a president.
I wanted to expand on that pneumonia when they came out with that because I knew a lot of people I saw online were really outraged when she said it was pneumonia. Not that she had pneumonia, but the fact that she went to that parade knowing she had pneumonia, where she could have spread that illness. What were your guys' reactions when you guys actually found out that it was pneumonia?
You can go ahead and answer first.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't really react to it that much because, of course, I don't want her to die, but since I didn't really support her anyways, I actually knew early on that she wouldn't win, so I didn't really pay that much attention to her and about her illness. I didn't really give much thought about how she could have spread that. Yeah, that's a concern as well. But after when I heard that she had pneumonia and combined with the fact that she lies, I also wonder what else could she be hiding? What if it's not pneumonia? What if it could be something else? What if she said it's a pneumonia to calm people down?
I think the outrage stemmed from the fact that didn't she touch or hug a little girl or something like that?
Yeah, that was the main issue.
Yeah.
It was a 9-year-old or 7-year-old.
So she first has to claim that she didn't know it was pneumonia. When I found out it was pneumonia, I was kind of upset. I was like, oh, why can't it be something more terminal? But yeah, to be clear, I could care less whether. Well, I could care less whether Hillary lived or died after that moment, because that would have immediately given Bernie Sanders the ticket, and someone like Hillary, who is as evil as she is, I won't. I would never murder a person, but if someone like her died, I would not shed a tear. I'd probably end up throwing a party later that night. But yeah, the whole fact that she, like, I don't remember if the claim was that she knew beforehand or she didn't know until after that incident. But if she knew beforehand, she definitely should have called it off. She definitely should have done her little speech and her little rally at a different time. If she didn't know, honestly, you can't blame her. Yeah, you're feeling a little sick. But at that point, like, if you're feeling sick, you should know something's going on, and you probably shouldn't be touching little children, especially since their immune systems are going to be weaker than adults. So I do get the outrage, but I think especially because I'm on a lot of conservative pages, a lot of liberal pages and stuff like that, and the conservative pages blew it so far out of proportion. Yeah, the child could have gotten sick, but at the same time, like, it's not the worst thing that Hillary's done. Let's be honest. So why focus so hard on that? Is that just supposed to be like another nail in the coffin, or was that supposed to be the silver bullet that finally did her in? You knew that it wasn't going to be the silver bullet. So I don't know why. Like, I could understand the outrage for like a day or two, but it went on for like weeks. Everybody blowing up about it, and there was no point to continue focusing on that for so long.
Wait, is it? Oh yeah. Anthony, you said you weren't shocked that, like, you said you thought Hillary was going to lose the entire time. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, did you really think Trump was going to win in the early stage? Because I've known some people who said that, but
Well, like, at first I didn't know who was going to win. However, like, as time went on, I had a feeling that Trump was going to win, especially since like he won the primaries. Because considering what happened since George W. Bush was president, more and more Americans became more discontent with like the status of like America, and also like it's also partly due to partisan politics, but like in Appalachia, coal miners being put out of work because of Obama's policies. That drove workers to desperation, combined with like, like people who are overly emotional in their arguments, and they vilified others, especially like this whole like anti-white thing happening. Like all of those combined, it drove many people to desperation, and people go where sheep go too, especially if it leads them to hell. So like, and also combined with Hillary like alienating her supporters. People wanted Bernie, but since Hillary came along, the Democratic Party got less support than they would have they have gotten for Bernie. So like when it was Hillary versus Trump, and Hillary relying nothing on her like establishment politics and her like former status of like first lady, and also relying on like vote for me and I'll be the first female president, since that's what some people cared about, but more people cared about policy. And since also it became about voting Hillary to not want Trump, and voting Trump to not have Hillary, people began preferring Trump over Hillary because they just didn't want Hillary. And they also see Trump as anti-establishment. That was the appeal that brought Trump great support. Same thing as how Bernie got great support. It's because of anti-establishment politics. Trump's politics may not be good, but it was something new that people wanted to hear, and so people were drawn to that. And also his slogan of draining the swamp. Like aside from making America great again, he advocated for draining the swamp, even though some of the swamp has not been drained. People wanted that. People just wanted something new.
Okay.
Hasn't been drained. He threw more alligators into the swamp.
Yeah, pretty much.
That kind of leads me to my next question a little bit. The mainstream media and how they were. I know some people, like some Democrats, like hardcore Hillary supporters, they say like they were more pro-Trump than pro-Hillary. However, and I could try to research this poll if you guys want me to. Where one of the debates, they took a poll and they actually, a lot of people said that they think they'll lean more pro-Hillary. I think they said only like 2% of people were actually going to be pro-Trump. Like, would you guys say like, the mainstream media will probably support liberal candidates over conservative candidates?
I would say, I actually would say so. Yeah.
No, the reason why I'm going to say no on that is because we had a very liberal candidate, and there was a poll done by CNN after the first debate, primary election with Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders swept it like 86 to 14% against Hillary Clinton. They immediately removed the poll. They don't favor the more liberal candidate. They favor the candidate that puts more money in their pockets.
What I mean by that, my question though is like if you say like if you have a liberal and a conservative, like in a Bernie Sanders case, like yeah, I know they're gonna go more pro Hillary because especially CNN because they're the Clinton news network and all that. But like say like even if it wasn't like Trump and Hillary, let's say it was who's an unpopular Democrat right now? Can you think of one?
An unpopular or popular?
Unpopular, like not like
unpopular Democrat.
Like Joe Manchin.
You have Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid.
I think Joe Manchin, just for the case that because he is like one of the more conservative Democrats. Let's say it was like him and Susan Collins, who's like one of the most favorable Republicans in the country. Do you think they'll still like try to favor Joe Manchin over her because the mainstream media is more left leaning, I guess? So I'm trying to ask.
I would still say they would support the Democrat despite the policies, because of the rhetoric, like the headlines they use. I'm just going to go back to like the Hillary and Trump scenario. Both of them were not liked at all, so like that kind of evens things out. But like the rhetoric that the media used at the sound bites, they painted Trump as this like evil, monstrous being, while they didn't like treat Hillary the same way. The media mocked him and like just showed him in a bad light. Meanwhile, they just painted Hillary as like first female, support equality, even though that's not really the case.
Did Fox News support Hillary over Trump, or did they support Trump over Hillary?
I'm actually just saying in general. Like Fox News, yeah, I will support Trump over Hillary, but I'm saying like in general, like MSNBC, NBC, CNN, ABC, especially ABC with George Stephanopoulos, because that's was Bill Clinton's campaign.
Right. Are you familiar with Morning Joe at all?
Yes.
With Joe
I don't
Scarborough?
watch him. I'm familiar with it over like what happened recently.
He was a Republican. He was a Republican congressman. Very much he was to the core a Republican, but now he's seeming to have an identity crisis because of everything that Republicans are doing. It's not so. The problem with mainstream media is it's going to be biased no matter what, and even quote unquote unbiased sources. People are going to watch what conforms with their views. They aren't like, I'm not going to go and sit at, I mean, I'm a bad example, but my dad claims to be an independent. He is way more conservative than he realizes. He listens to Fox News. He doesn't listen to CNN and MSNBC. He considers those liberal media and therefore biased, but he doesn't consider Fox News biased. So you're, no matter what, and the main, everyone claims that the mainstream media, when they talk about mainstream media, they talk only about MSNBC, CNN, NBC, all the, like, they never include Fox News. Fox News is considered a mainstream media. They are considered a mainstream media outlet. So if you talk about mainstream media, you have to include Fox News. If you do not include Fox News, you are now showing a bias and a favoritism towards a conservative side. They are considered a mainstream media. All mainstream medias lie. They omit truths. They hide parts of their stories, and um and they're going to favor whoever their company favors. CNN's there was a trail through CNN back to Hillary Clinton through donations and stuff. So who do you think they're going to support? Same thing with MSNBC. Who do you think they're going to support? Fox News is oh, I think we lost them. I just got a message saying his computer froze on him.
Oh my god.
All right, we'll have to wait for him till he comes back on. Because I think he might have been he's the one streaming it and recording it.
I'm just going to get water.
All right. So apparently we are still recording.
Oh,
He's using his phone currently, so
I see.
he said he's using the chat to ask questions, but he's trying to restart his computer to get back in the chat. Yeah, you mentioned earlier about the whole Cuban voters tending to be more conservative, but there is I did want to talk about it, but he wanted to move on to the other subject. Younger Cubans actually tend to lean more towards